There's just not enough time in the world, people. There is just not enough time to cover every crazy occurrence in this sport. I am going to try my best here, but we're sitting here. It is Monday, October 13th. I have to go to work within the next 45 minutes. I also have to head over to PetSmart to get some food for my dog. We're going to try. We might have to save some stuff for Wednesday. We're going to get into the biggest stories of the weekend. There is just an obscene amount of football content to deliver on, to discuss. We're going to try our best. Welcome in to the latest Spring Break College Football Show. Again, Monday, October 13th. This is your favorite ball knower's favorite ball knowing show. If you are watching us on YouTube and you're here for the first time, first of all, welcome. I hope you like my setup. I hope you like the cutoff, the hat. 2 rules of this show: sleeves stay off, hat stays on. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, show me any sort of support, leave a comment. What was your favorite game of the weekend? I know mine. We'll get to it in a second, and a little bit later on. If you're here, support the show. If you're listening, Spotify, Apple, I like you guys too. Not as much as the YouTubers, because YouTube is what I want to grow the most. I think it's what's been the most beneficial in this media realm, but make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's just as important that you're here. Leave a 5-star review, do all that fun stuff. Also, please go and follow our socials. That is at Spring Blake CFB on both Twitter and TikTok. You're going to find stuff from this show, stuff that goes beyond this show. As of this morning, you're going to see a really fun highlight reel. Yeah, I said that, a highlight reel. We nailed week 7 of college football, and I just felt like taking a victory lap. So there's a 2-minute video out there of every take that I got right. I had a lot of fun making that one late last night. Again, the socials at Spring Blake CFB. Make sure to give us a follow and support us on there. On today's show, we will talk Indiana. We will talk Alabama. We'll talk Red River. We'll have a whole lot of fun while we are doing it. But before we can do any of that, we have to go to State College, where the Penn State athletic department made the decision Sunday morning, Sunday early afternoon, sometime on Sunday, to let go of James Franklin after 3 straight losses, 2 of which were to UCLA and Northwestern, 2 games where they were 20-plus point favorites in. Kind of the steady downfall and crumble from their loss at visiting Oregon, as the visiting Oregon Ducks came into town a few weeks ago. So this puts to an end what was one of the 10 longest tenured head coaching runs in the sport heading into this season, the second of which to come to an end after Mike Gundy was let go at Oklahoma State. James Franklin finishes at Penn State 108-45 with the Nittany Lions. He won them a Big Ten title, took them to the college football playoff semis last year, 7 New Year's 6 bowl games. Whole lot of wins, whole lot of success. Penn State will pay nearly $50 million to James Franklin by the way of a fat buyout. Meanwhile, he can go sit on a beach with his family before deciding where to take his career next. So surrounding this situation, I had been on the record a few weeks prior saying that this felt like the beginning of the end for the Franklin-Penn State marriage, coming off of the loss to Oregon. And now as I sit here looking at the bodies laying on the floor, I wonder if it all really needed to happen. Now, I'm sure that the fans at Penn State, the donors, those in the athletic department feel like it needed to because of how bad the last 3 weeks were. It was probably a deafening, exhausting experience, not to just lose to Oregon in like the game of James Franklin's career, but to follow that up with 2 of the most inexcusable results we've seen on a football field all season. I'm sure it was exhausting to have to answer on a daily basis about what the future of this program is going to be. The fact that this year was supposed to be the year to make the jump and that you blew out both of your knees upon takeoff is inexcusable. But is this reaction and making this decision now a mistake? James Franklin had brought Penn State into being the model of consistency, kept them as being one of the more highly discussed teams in the country, and was the perfect long-term solution for a program that was trying to pick itself up from a very dark era of college football. And I know James Franklin wasn't the first guy to replace Joe Paterno and move past that, but he is everything that you wanted out of a head coach as a person to kind of build this program up for the dark eras that they had to endure. James Franklin is not some bad dude who you kept around just because he was successful. There's a lot of coaches in football where you're like, yeah, he might not be the best guy, but I'll tell you what, we love those 10-win regular seasons, so we're not going to say anything too bad. No, this is a really good coach who is also a really great person, and those can be hard to find sometimes. So, a few weeks ago, I was like, this is the beginning of the end. I wonder, my big concern for Penn State as they move forward is, what if James Franklin got Penn State to the highest achievements that Penn State is possible of achieving? That sounds like a mouthful, but let me break it down a little bit further. I know this is a concept that nobody wants to accept, but what if being a B+ program is actually A+ success for Penn State in this current landscape of college football? What if flirting with the occasional conference championship, or playing tight games against the sport's elite programs, or sniffing the second round or the third round of the college football playoffs is the best you're going to be capable of at Penn State? This isn't the state of Florida or the state of Texas, where there are 5-stars sitting in your backyard and just chomping at the bits to play for you. Now, you are the program of the Northeast. But the Northeast feels like a region that's slowly been losing its shine or its ability to stay dominant over the last 10 to 15 years. Now, football-wise, it's never really been like that. If you go back to the 50s and the 60s when Syracuse had things rolling, like, there have been some programs that have had their sparkle of dominance, and Penn State has been the program of the Northeast. But it seems as though time has gone on and this era of college athletics is changing. It seems to be the one region in the country that is losing its luster. The South will always have it. West Coast, California, they'll always have it. The Midwest has kind of their mean, gritty brand of football where you've got the Iowas and you can recruit a certain type of player there. And you can do that at Penn State too. Penn State does have that region by the balls. They are football in the Northeast. But what if football is headed down a similar pathway that college basketball has endured over the last 10 to 15 years? And we don't talk college basketball on this show because it's a college football show. It's in the name. But over the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen the elite programs of the Northeast, outside of UConn, Syracuse. Now, I should have done more prep because now I'm thinking of all the programs that were, you've seen a little bit of a resurgence with St. John's, but the Big East overall, like, it just doesn't feel like being in the Northeast right now has the same importance or desire that it had 20 years ago. What if football is on a similar path? There's no way of knowing that with certainty, which is why you have to make the move. But I just wonder if James Franklin was getting the most out of Penn State that Penn State is possible of getting. I just wonder if we will be sitting here 5 years from now when Penn State maybe is still at the same level they've been at, where they're winning 10 games and they're, not the A tier of the Big Ten, but they're the B+ tier of the Big Ten. And maybe they sneak their way into a conference title game, or maybe they're, staying ranked through all the entirety of the regular season. Maybe in 5 years, Penn State is just what they are, and maybe James Franklin is off elsewhere winning. And we just wonder if we maybe reacted too harshly to a bad 3-game stretch. Because that's what's unfortunate about college athletics, is that you are not really allowed a bad 3-game stretch. I am kind of surprised that the decision was made here and now. I'm surprised that they didn't wait till the offseason, have a conversation with Franklin and say, hey, what did we think about this coordinator hire? Do we need to make a change here? I think we need to make a change here. Can we make a change here? Let's make a change here. And maybe they make that big change and they bring in another guy that's of significant impact, and they can roll things back out. And you didn't lose all the recruits that James Franklin had wanted to bring in. And there's not all this tipsy-topsy turnover to where you can say, hey, we had a bad 3-game stretch. Quarterback's out for the season. We don't want it to be this way, but let's just take a little bit of a breather, reset, and try again next year. I wonder if 5 years from now, we'll be sitting here being like, you know what James Franklin did? He got the most out of Penn State in this current era of college football. And all we've done since he's left is lower and lower our expectations for this football program. It's tough. I didn't think they were going to do it in the middle of the season because of the buyout. And I thought at the end of the season, they might have been like a mutual agreement to part ways if Franklin felt like there was another opportunity that he could just sneak right into. Making the change now, I wonder if it was a little bit of like a overreaction to how bad things have been. Maybe there's stuff we don't know that's going on in the program. But James Franklin is one of those coaches to me where I don't think we're going to get that athletic report that comes out and it's like, here are all the things behind the scenes that were going wrong and how James Franklin wasn't paying the same attention to this team as he was in the past 12 years. No, he is the model of consistency. He's a great dude. I feel for him in this situation because it does seem like certain coaches in certain parts of the country are given much longer leashes than he was given here. And hey, maybe it's one of those things where it works out for him. He can find a new spot and maybe prove that he did a little bit more at Penn State than Penn State wants to give him credit for. Either way, they made the move. And now we have to kind of sit and wait. That's the tough part with college football, right? It's like we can't just find out now. We got to wait till the regular season finishes up. We got to see who's going to take the job. We're going to see where James Franklin goes. And then we have to wait a whole couple of years to figure out who was right, who was wrong in this situation. Now, on the job front for Penn State, this is the last thing that we want to talk about before we can actually talk about the games that happened this past weekend. Penn State obviously has to hire a new head coach now. And I think there are a few things that people need to get cleared up on the job front and kind of understand about the current landscape of this sport. Penn State is not a better job than Texas A&M right now. So scratch Mike Elko off your fucking list. Penn State is a great program. They have a ton of history, a ton of success. It is a very desirable job. With all the jobs that open up at the end of the year, it'll be one of the top jobs to get. Texas A&M has more money, more consistent fan base. That's not to say anything bad about Penn State. Again, I'm just saying things that are better about Texas A&M. And Mike Elko's got a team right now that is undefeated in the SEC and looks to be the best team in the conference. He's from the area? Cool. He's got an awesome job right now. One of the best coaching jobs in the world. He's not going to leave this opportunity 2 years in, especially with the success that they have built since he showed up. So scratch Mike Elko off your list. Texas A&M is a better job right now than Penn State. I also do not think this is a job that Curt Cignetti is going to take. It took Curt Cignetti a year and a half to turn Indiana, of all places, into something that you've been trying to chase for over a decade now. Curt Cignetti has, 2 top 10 wins in a year and a half? And I believe James Franklin has as many over the last 10 years. Penn State has the history. They have the name. Since Curt Cignetti has showed up to Indiana, all they've done is given him all the money in the world, all the resources in the world, and said, we will do whatever we can to keep you here. And you know what? He's done a damn good job of it. We're going to talk about Indiana later on in this show. I just do not see a world where Curt, he's from the area. How do you do it? It's like he has something going great right now. I don't think that he would, and he's spurned other jobs before, but it's like he left Elon for JMU. He left JMU to go to Indiana. Like, these are all jumps. Indiana right now, where they're at, there's not many higher jumps because of the resources they're being able to give to him and the success that they're having on a football field. So Elko and Cignetti, I get it. I'd want him to coach my team too. I thankfully got one of them to coach my team for a few years. It's not going to happen this offseason. Another thing with the job that we also need to realize is that there are going to be a couple other major programs that open up between now and the end of the regular season. And a couple that I think are going to be more desirable than Penn State actually is. So there is no guaranteeing that this is the spot where every top candidate is going to want to go. It's going to be one of them. They're going to interview all the top ones. But I'd go to Florida over Penn State with the recruiting and the funds and the SEC, the fan base. Like, I would go to Florida over Penn State. Now, the expectations are high, but you also just fired a guy that had been winning football games for 12 years. You don't think expectations are going to be high at Penn State? They're going to be sky high. This team was in the semifinals a year ago. I'd go to the Florida job over Penn State. This is a bit of a stretch. I might want Arkansas. I might want it because the expectations maybe a little bit lower in Arkansas right now. There's also going to be jobs that we don't know are open right now that will open up. What if Florida State bottoms out? What if FSU just tanks? They've lost 3 games in a row. They're sitting here and they can't win. They can't get to a bowl game. Mike Norvell might be on the hot seat. FSU might open up. I'd take that job. I'm just saying, we want all the top names right now. And there are a few that are Penn State's going to hire a great coach, a great candidate, because they are one of the premier programs in the country. Let's take a break real quick. It's October 13th. We got a whole lot of season left, whole lot of jobs to open up, whole lot of coaches to make their names known. And I think we just have to have a little bit more of a patient approach. Now, that being said, I do want to float some candidates out there. And let me make sure. Okay, we haven't spent too long talking about this. God, I'm going to be so late to work today. When I think of ideal candidates for this Penn State job, my mind floats to something a little bit different than I think what people mostly want to grab at. They want to grab at the highlight names, the top guys like, oh my God, Dan Mullen, he's 6-0 at UNLV, or John Gruden's not coaching right now, but he's John Gruden. Like, they want to go for names right now. And I get it. There are a lot of coaches that will do well at Penn State. My mind goes differently because I think I view Penn State differently than Penn State views themselves. I don't know if you're going to hire a guy that has just won because of resources or won because of he hit this program at the right time. Like, I want to bring in a coach. When I look at candidates for the Penn State job, my mind floats to guys that are winning at places that you shouldn't be winning at and winning there for a while. Because that tells me that an influx of resources and strapping a bigger logo on your polo will elevate you that much higher. That's the type of candidate I'm looking for at Penn State. And I've got 3 names. The first 2 are going to be, they're not going to pop off the charts. The third one obviously will. The first guy that I think of for this job is Matt Campbell. The fact that Matt Campbell is still in the Big 12 after nearly a decade of exceeding expectations at Iowa State is beside me. He played college in the state of Pennsylvania, has gotten looks from the NFL. I think he interviewed for the Jets head coaching job 6-7 years ago now. And he's still just 45 years old. That's a guy I look at and I say, if we can give you the resources and the brand identity of Penn State, you have done things at Iowa State that not many people could do. This would be a really good opportunity to bring him in, to get him for a really long time too. As I mentioned, 45 years old. This would be, to me, if it hits, the final destination for a guy like Matt Campbell, unless he wanted to go to, the NFL. But he's the first guy I look at and say, like, I would love Matt Campbell at State College. On a similar playing field, I'm looking at the ACC right now, and I would want Brent Key as my head coach for Penn State. Again, not the flashiest name by any means. He's not going to make your jaw hit the floor and be like, wow, we hit a home run here. But this is a dude that has established an ability to consistently win at a school that should not be winning football. Georgia Tech, great program. To the fans of Georgia Tech that are listening to this, I love you. You're great. Love the Yellow Jackets. What Brent Key has done there over his tenure is incredibly impressive. Not just the fact that he is one of the more competitive teams in the conference. His teams have the best identity over most programs in the country. He's also battling recruiting in the South with Georgia and the state of Florida while being in the ACC and not really having the pull that a lot of those programs have. He's a guy that I think if you give resources to and give him a bigger brand, things are really just going to start rolling. So those are the first 2 names. Brent Key, Matt Campbell. They're not the flashiest, but I would really love the idea of getting them in at Penn State because I think you're going to hit right on time and get things soaring. So those are the 2 guys. The third is very obvious. It's Matt Rule. And this is a guy who has shown you the Brent Key and Matt Campbell stuff already. He wins wherever he's at the collegiate level. It could be Temple. It could be Baylor. It's now Nebraska. He is a former walk-on for the Nittany Lions. The story there is amazing. He's got a very close relationship with Penn State's athletic director, Pat Kraft. It almost makes too much sense if he's willing to leave Nebraska after being there for just a couple of seasons and slowly turning things around as they're off to a really nice start. Penn State should want Matt Rule. Matt Rule should want Penn State. My only thing is I just don't know how the timing of this all works if Nebraska goes on to have a really successful regular season in 2025. This is one where it feels like it makes so much sense. But is the timing right in 2025? That's the only thing I wonder about Matt Rule. But again, if you go and get the splash hire, you go and get the hot coordinator, or you go get, I don't even know. I don't think of Coach Sig. I don't think of, who are the other names that we just were talking about? Coach Sig, Mike Elko, those don't make sense to me just because I don't think you're going to be able to get them. If you want to go and get a big name, go right ahead. But if you're talking about three guys that I think would fit the program well and their success would be elevated by joining Penn State, the names I would say Brent Key, Matt Campbell, and obviously Matt Rule. So that is all I have to say on Penn State. That's a long-winded rant there about what is the biggest news story of the season thus far. We're going to take a break so I can take some water, make sure this camera's still rolling, and we will actually get to talk about the football that happened this past weekend.
Balake. Where is Balake at?
So again, I know it might sound surprising because of how we started today's show, but there were actually some really awesome games played on Saturday, actually on a football field. And where to start? Where to go into? I'm going to tell you right now, we do not have the time to get into what I would call the secondary games of this because we spent so much time on Penn State. We're going to hit the three biggest games of the week. I guess at least the three biggest in my opinion. Maybe you guys feel differently. We'll do some brief notes on Wednesday's show to tie a bow on things, but we are going to head out west to discuss Indiana, undaunted, going into Autzen Stadium. Going into Autzen and snatching the soul out of Oregon to a final score of 30-20. Monumental win for Coach Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. And how about this? The final score almost a little misleading. Oregon gets two scores here off of a pick six and a busted coverage on, I believe, what was a 44-yard touchdown for Oregon's offense. This was a Hoosier smackdown. And respectfully, I say that because Dan Lanning's teams don't get smacked around unless it's Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. But this was still a tight game. Oregon was within reach. However, Indiana outgained Oregon on the ground, outgained them on the air, held the Ducks offense to 3 of 14 on third downs. They sacked Dante Moore 6 times, forced 2 interceptions. We talked about last week how this team, a team that I told you since the preseason was much improved overall than what they were in 2024, still had to prove it by playing tight with your better opponents on your schedule, not getting blown out by Notre Dame or Ohio State, I believe it was. Can you compete with the good teams on your schedule? Well, here you go. There have got to be so many athletic directors and football programs fuming, pissed off when their head coach tells them that they need more time to get the ball rolling, because it is simply astounding what Coach Cignetti has been able to do, not just at Indiana, but through the recent coaching parts of his career. He took a 2-9 football program at Elon and made them 8-4 in one season. His first season at the head coach. That's 2-9 to 8-4. Immediate success from a team that should not be winning football games. He then elevates an already successful JMU program into 3 conference titles, helps them transition from the FCS to the FBS, and oh wait, we're not just going to transition up to that level of competition, we're going to win the Sun Belt East regular season in the first season. I think they were a 10-win team in year 2. Now, they weren't able to do everything that you wanted them to do because there's postseason limitations or title limitations when you transition from the FCS to FBS. But still, he jumps in to FBS. He takes a team from a subdivision of college football, and it was like nothing actually happened. They were totally fine. They were winning just as they did at the lower level and dominated the Sun Belt for a couple seasons. And then, of course, he jumps to Indiana, which I was upset about at the time, obviously. Who wouldn't be? But I got it. I understood. A fat check in the Big Ten makes a lot of sense. And what he's done since then is nothing short of remarkable. It truly is one of the crazier things in this sport. Like, you just aren't supposed to do things that easily in college football. And on that being said, I don't really know what their ceiling is going to be. I know that they're in position, a great position to play for the Big Ten title. I know they'll be one of the better teams you see all season, one of the better teams you'll see in the college football playoffs. And I know they have a legitimate shot at winning a national championship. There is no 2020s Georgia or late 2010s Alabama. Like, there is not a dynasty in this sport right now. So why can't Indiana compete for a national championship? We just saw them go into Oregon and take a really impressive win, something they should not have been able to do. They looked better in all facets. In the trenches, they looked amazing. Their two wide receivers were fantastic on the day. Mendoza still continuing on what's a really strong season there for the Hoosiers. It's unbelievable. Again, this is Indiana we're talking about. This isn't a G5 team that gets to play in the playoffs because they're the best G5 team. It's not your Big 12 champ, which, no offense to the Big 12 champs. This isn't one of those stories where it's like, hey, they got to the playoffs because, you know, they played a lighter schedule and they weren't that really good of a team. No, they're a fantastic team. It's truly one of the more banana stories in this sport. I feel very happy to share a small part in it because I look very fondly on the Coach Sig era. I wish it was longer, but when you have a coach that is this good, it's impossible to, hey, why don't you stay around at Harrisonburg, Virginia? Yeah, the entire world is going to know that you're one of the best coaches in the sport right now, but let's just come back to Harrisonburg. The Dukes in the Sun Belt miss you. Like, I didn't expect him to stay around, especially with how successful things have gone thus far. I'm very happy that the beautiful people in Bloomington, Indiana get to share this experience just as much because how can you not be romantic about football? It's amazing. Now, I'm always the teeter-totter guy. Maybe that's just, I sit right in the middle of that teeter-totter. Everything's fine in Oregon. They're fine. This is a damn good football team. It just wasn't their day. You always felt like there's going to be a turning point because that's what happens when Dan Lanning is faced in these games or in their deficits. They're like, oh, there's going to be a moment here where they just snatch this thing and turn it around. Something that would kickstart a massive comeback. And I'm honestly surprised that the pick six wasn't that. It felt like it was because obviously, you know, all of a sudden they're right back in this game off a pass that shouldn't have been thrown. They take advantage of it and you're like, oh, okay, Oregon's back now. They got this. But I think that Indiana being able to come back at that point is more of a credit to the Hoosiers and not a disservice to the Ducks. It's just a really good football team. Oregon showed some chinks in the armor. They showed some minor concerns on the offensive line. And it was the first time that you sat there and you were like, man, we really do miss Evan Stewart. And obviously they've missed him the entire regular season. He was supposed to be the wide receiver, which would allow Decorian Moore to be the number 2 wide receiver or allow Sadiq Bey to be the tight end. Like, everybody's had to shift their expectations in the receiver room because of Evan Stewart's injury. This was the first game where you were like, man, we really could have used a number 2 guy to make this offense a little less predictable, because that's what they came into when it was all said and done. Defensively, you kind of just found yourself going up against a really good quarterback, 2 really talented wide receivers. Elijah Surratt was just dominant on the day. And then the run game just kind of contributed to death by 1,000 paper cuts. There was nothing that wowed me in the trenches. It was impressive that Indiana's offensive line was able to create some movement like that, but it was like more volume than it was getting gashed for 20-yard plays. This is still one of the best teams in the Big Ten, one of the best teams in the nation, one that has some things they can learn from now. Like, you can actually head back to the drawing board and be like, all right, so we just got smacked in the face by a really good football team. How will we respond? I'm really interested to see how Oregon takes form over the rest of the regular season because, again, this was why I was like, hey, they're going to be a much better team in December than they are in September. It's a young football team. They're still learning who they are, and I think that this result gives them a chance to do that now that they know what some of their weaker points on the roster are. So, again, just to tie a bow, awesome win for Indiana. I feel fine about the Ducks, and these are 2 teams that could very well see each other again, whether it be in the playoffs or the Big Ten title. But yeah, just a really fun game. Two great teams, two great quarterbacks, two awesome head coaches, and it just made for the result of the weekend for me. So one more break. Got two more games to discuss. We'll be right back talking Alabama, Mizzou.
My name's Blake.
Now, almost as impressive as Indiana was heading out west and taking down Oregon on the road, Kalen DeBoer's Crimson Tide blew me away this weekend. And I think this is right. I think I heard this somewhere, that they became the first team in college football history to win 3 consecutive games against ranked SEC opponents. That would be Georgia, Vandy, Mizzou. They march into Missouri, take them down 27-24. Absolute dogfight of a game. That's the thing with Alabama, is they're not a team that is going to beat you by 30. And that's under Kalen DeBoer. Bama, you could just not stand a chance against them. They're not that type of team. Every game is going to be a dogfight, but they got the bigger dogs. And that's what happened in this weekend. Alabama playing great football right now. 2 weeks in a row now, the Tide have taken away the opposing team's identity and forced them into being something that they're not, which has made the difference in the outcome of this game. 2 weeks ago, Alabama was able to separate from Vandy because Vandy wasn't able to run the football. They didn't register a single carry in the fourth quarter of that game, completely abandoning who they are as a team. Pavia couldn't run the ball effectively. They couldn't get it with their backs, and Alabama just forced them to be something they weren't and just slowly allowed the offense to separate from them on Saturday. Now, this past weekend, they did the same exact thing to the run-centric Tigers. Mizzou carried the football just 9 times in the second half, had to turn away from the very single thing that made them a potent offense this entire season. Ahmad Hardy was held to just 52 yards on 12 carries. Mizzou running backs only carried the ball 17 times on the day. Maybe that's a game script thing where you can go to the coaching staff and be like, hey, what did we do here? I thought it had more to do with Alabama forcing them away from that style. Again, because we just saw them do it to Vanderbilt. And that made all the difference in the game, as I said. Getting Mizzou away from who they were as a football team forced them to be a really inefficient offense. They went 1 of 10 on third downs. Bo Perbula threw Alabama 2 interceptions on the day. And the Tide won the time of possession battle by 17 and a half minutes. Just never allowed Mizzou the chance to be who they are or who they were through the first 5-6 weeks of the regular season. And what allowed Alabama to just slowly, again, Mizzou came back late and put a score on there, but allowed Alabama to separate when it was all said and done. The Alabama offense, I don't know what more I can continue to say on a week in, week out basis. I keep saying the same thing. They just get better with every passing week. There isn't a group playing better, more cohesive style of football right now than the Alabama Crimson Tide. Ty Simpson is playing like the best quarterback in the nation right now. I think he was 21 of 30. I might have the passing numbers wrong, but 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is so smart with the football. Him and Ryan Grubb have such a strong understanding of how to pick apart opposing defenses. There is never a moment where I feel like I see him get flustered or erratic. And when that does happen, he throws the ball out of harm's way. He avoids the sacks. Like, he is playing surgical football right now. Really appreciate the mental composure that he has on a football field, because Mizzou's defense, especially on the front line, did a nice job of creating pressure. I thought the way he handled that was really effective. So again, Ty Simpson was great. I love the offensive play calling from Ryan Grubb. They have so many options on this offense. 8 different players, 8 different skill players. There was a 9th because I think an offensive lineman caught a tip pass. There were 8 different tailbacks, tight ends, wide receivers that caught a pass on Saturday for Alabama. None of them named Ryan Williams. He was taken out of this game. He had no impact, but it didn't matter because they had so many different mouths to feed. And then I called it weeks ago. I'm not saying that I'm sitting here as some guru, but I told you weeks ago, after that Alabama-Georgia game, when we saw Caden Proctor take a screen pass, I was like, oh, this isn't a one-time thing. No, Caden Proctor is going to become a very important piece of this offense. You saw him take a 3rd and 1 goal line carry, picked up a really crucial first down. I was begging for him to get in the end zone. He was stuffed 1 yard short. Caden Proctor, early front runner for Dude of the Year. That's an award that I decided a couple weeks ago in my head. I was like, I need just a Dude of the Year. Caden Proctor is the Dude of the Year front runner right now. I don't know why it fires me up so much. It fuels something in my chest, in my loins, that just makes me love football so fucking much. Seeing Caden Proctor at 359 pounds take goal line carries and screen passes. How can you not be romantic about college football? Whew. See, I get too worked up. To switch to the other side of the football for Alabama, it feels as though fans might not be in love with this defense right now, and I get it. Like, yeah, teams are putting up points or they're having some breakaway runs, and it doesn't always look like 60 minutes of dominant football, which if you're an Alabama fan, I understand why you're mad about it. You've watched some of the best defenses of all time on a college football field over the last decade, but this isn't going to be it. That's not going to be what Kalen DeBoer has on a year in, year out basis. But you know what it is? It's a defense that is opportunistic, that tightens up in the red zone and other key moments that it's needed, and make sure that the opposing team doesn't put up more points. Just be happy with that. Yeah, Mizzou put up, 24? You scored 27. Yeah, Georgia came back in the second half. Whatever, you won. Let's pump the brakes. They make big plays when they need to. They do a really nice job of forcing opposing offenses to be something that they're not, and it's helped them to a couple of really big wins here. Don't forget, too, that the Alabama defense was put in a really bad situation to start the second half. I believe Ty Simpson fumbled the football. Missouri started a drive in the red zone. So, again, that's 7 points right there that are more on your offense than anything. Don't forget that they also had 2 second-half interceptions, as I mentioned, 4 3-and-outs. There were some really strong moments from the Alabama defense when they needed to step up. And just when you think things get easier for them, because that's the thing with Alabama too, it's like, hey man, went to Georgia, ended Georgia's home game win streak. Awesome. All right, well, hey, next week, you got to host Vandy. Got to get that monkey off your back. Whew, all right, good. Got that one off, separated from Vandy at the end. It wasn't always easy, but we got the job done. What's up next? Oh, cool. You just have to go to Mizzou. You have to play a really good football team in a really tough road environment. They're going to be hungry. This is like their game of the season. You squeak out of that one, like, man, where's Mississippi State? Where's Kentucky? Oh, no. It's the third weekend of October. You know what that means. Tennessee coming into town this Saturday. Shit just does not get easy in the SEC. It's crazy. You can't make it up. There are some teams, we're going to talk about Red River to finish this one off, like Oklahoma. Fuck, man, I feel bad for you guys. I feel bad for Alabama. They can't take a breath. Georgia, Vandy, Mizzou, Tennessee. It's like, can we get a bye week soon? Can we get Kentucky? Fuck. Really impressed with the Tide. I don't have much to say on Mizzou because Mizzou did what I thought they would do. I thought they'd play this game close. I thought they'd have moments where you're like, hey, are they going to win this thing? They're a really good team. I just don't think they're a great team. And I got beat by a great team on Saturday. So those are my thoughts on that game. One more game to discuss. We're going to take one more timeout and finish up with the Red River Shootout.
Blake. What?
Didn't want you guys to think that I was going to forget to bring up Red River. We nailed the outcome of this game. You guys are stupid if you didn't think I'd come back to take my victory lap in this one. Texas wins an ugly game here in Dallas. Final score is 23-6. I got everything I expected out of this game. This was Texas at the brink of a potential collapse, in desperate need of a response, because again, there's no way you can start your season 0-3 against Power 4 opponents. It's inexcusable for Texas and the type of program they're at right now. And they did that by dominating this football game against Oklahoma. They outrushed the Sooners 136-48. They gave up 1 sack on the day to a ferocious Oklahoma defensive line, the same Sooner defensive line that had 7 or 8 sacks against Auburn a few weeks ago. Maybe 10, was it? Whatever it was a high number there. They just sacked Arch Manning once in this one. Meanwhile, they brought down John Mateer 5 times, forced 3 interceptions from the, at one point, Heisman contender. I was wildly impressed by the Texas offensive line in this game. You know, I didn't know what I was going to get out of Oklahoma offensively. We'll talk about the Sooners in just a second. But I was like, okay, well, we know we're going to get a really strong game from this Oklahoma defense. I thought the mismatch between Oklahoma's front 7 and Texas's offensive line was a significant one. It didn't look like it. Didn't look like it. This was a Texas offensive line that was put into significant question the first 6 weeks of the regular season, playing some really bad football, both in opening up running lanes, protecting the quarterback. All of that flipped on Saturday. To protect Arch in the way they did against this defensive front, and to open up running lanes for Contravion Wisner to earn his 94 yards on the day, I just really hope that this is the turning point for Texas's offensive line, because this is a group that needs to play at a high level consistently if they are going to be what we want Texas to be. And hopefully this is the landmark moment where you're like, hey, got bullied around by Ohio State, got bullied around by Florida's defensive front. We responded with our backs against the walls against what is one of the best front sevens in the sport. I would say Oklahoma's front seven is better than Florida's. It rivals Ohio State's, but it's not the same. It's still one of the best 3 to 4 groups in the sport. To respond like that a week after looking as bad as they did against Florida, one of the more impressive turnarounds I've seen in this sport this season. So obviously it can't just be a one-game thing. You need to go and do it this upcoming week against, is it Kentucky or Mississippi State? I know they've got those two in the next coming weeks. After your bye week, you need to steamroll this thing, so when you go up against Georgia and you go up against Texas A&M, we aren't saying, man, the offensive line let them down again. Hopefully this is the landmark moment where Texas can kind of turn its season around, because when you get that better play from the offensive line and you get run support, excuse me, when you get strong play from your offensive line and you get run support, I know it's going to sound crazy, but all of a sudden, your young quarterback doesn't look all too bad, does he? Now, Arch didn't light the world on fire Saturday. He was good. He wasn't great. Everybody's like, I saw a few people being like, this is the Arch we thought we were getting. It was better. I don't think it was awesome. He had moments and throws where you're like, I wish he'd have that one back. But you also saw the high-end potential that we all thought he could have. There were a few there. Sorry. Take a breather there for a second. Sorry, if you're watching this live or you're listening to this live, we're going to take a step back. I got my thoughts a little bit jumbled up. This show does better on social clips than it does on, the full form. So we're just going to get this social clip right up. So just pretend I didn't say any of this. And hey, it's a crazy idea. But when you give a young quarterback some run support and some pass protection, he doesn't look all too bad, does he? Arch didn't light the world on fire, but he had moments and throws out there where you can see the high-end potential we all thought he had coming into the season. Now, the processing, still a little slow. The arm doesn't look out of this world, but again, we're talking about a young kid that seems to be getting better with each passing week. Florida was fine down the stretch when they opened things up. He looked really good on Saturday. I wouldn't say great like a lot of people are, but if you're going to get that development out of your quarterback and you're going to get better play from the offensive line and better run support, then I can paint a picture where Texas is still contending in the SEC or making a push in the college football playoffs, because on the other side of that thing, you got a damned good defense. And we'll talk about how great they were when we talk about Oklahoma, but you're just slowly starting to see this team come into form. It's almost like, hey, we said this with Florida at one point after their win against Texas. It's almost like the team in week one you are in week one isn't the team you're going to be in week 12. If this is the turning point for this Texas offense, we're going to start to feel comfortable saying that they can be the team we expected them to be heading into the regular season. Because you got a full-fledged effort, complimentary football, made all the difference there for Texas. And for Oklahoma, look, you just hadn't been tested this season. That's really what it is. And you got your first test of the year in some pretty unfortunate, less than ideal situations. I'd much rather face Texas when my star quarterback isn't 17 days removed from hand surgery. Which, by the way, I thought Mateer, the arm, looked good. Decision-making, needing to do everything, it wasn't his day. I was very surprised with how the arm looked. But even that said, I'd rather face Texas under different circumstances, where he hasn't missed time, where it isn't his first game back after hand surgery. I'd rather just have him healthy. So again, for your first test of the season, and I say first test because Michigan wasn't a test. We just saw USC just dog them. We'll talk about that game a little bit on Wednesday maybe, but this was Oklahoma's first test, and I thought all the issues we had with Oklahoma or the concerns I had in the preseason, in the first month of the regular season, and certainly on this past Saturday reared its ugly head. This Oklahoma team will not go anywhere significant if they can't find something on the ground or in the offensive trenches. Just 48 rushing yards on the day. Blaylock was the lead back for 33 yards. Oklahoma ranks 93rd nationally in rushing yards per game, 103rd in yards per rush. It is not just the running backs, it's also the offensive line, a group that is protecting the quarterback just as poorly as they are opening up running lanes. Oklahoma quarterbacks being sacked at a rate that is good for 88th in the country. John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle changed a ton for this offense when they came in, just by showing up. It was like, hey, the upgraded quarterback, the upgraded play caller, like, there's going to be a lot that is just easier to do on that side of the football. But they cannot single-handedly change the performance of the running backs or the performance of the offensive line. These things need to change quickly because it's fine if you want Mateer to be Superman for the entire season, but you're going to have games like this one that happened where he throws 3 picks because you're up against a really good team. I think he'll get back to being Superman, but sometimes defenses give you kryptonite, right? Like, you're not going to get the Heisman performance every single week, especially when you do not have an offensive line or a ground game that can match up with Texas's front seven. Oklahoma will be competitive, but if Mateer is any bit hampered through the rest of the regular season or he faces up against some really tough defenses, then I really worry about this team that still has Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Mizzou, and LSU on the schedule. That is a lot of good teams, a lot of good defenses. This was the blueprint to beating Oklahoma. Just have a really good defense. And Mateer, who has to do everything for this team to be successful, is going to make mistakes because he's not actually Superman. So that was where I left this with Oklahoma. Still a really good team. They'll still be competitive because Mateer is there. But, Florida responded out of their bye and changed who they were against Texas. Texas responded to that loss and changed who they were for Oklahoma. Can Oklahoma take this and be like, hey, what are we going to change? What are we going to figure out? Because something needs to fix specifically along the offensive line, in the running back room. I don't know who it is or what it is, but they need to play better complementary football. So John Mateer doesn't need to be Superman and then as Superman throw 3 interceptions to a really good defense. So those are my thoughts on Red River. Those are my thoughts on the biggest games of Week 7. Again, we ran out of time. I'm already running late to work. We will cover Georgia-Auburn briefly on Wednesday's show, Texas A&M, Florida, really the only game that I got wrong this week, Michigan-USC briefly, and then it's going to be a 3-show week because of those. We still have to cover those games. We have the Week 8 Spring Blake Sweet 16 poll. Week 8 makes me sad saying that out loud. That's crazy. We're already here in the middle of October. We've got some massive games to preview, best bets, all that fun stuff. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Again, the socials at Spring Blake CFB. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Podcast, Spotify, Apple, subscribe, 5-star review. I love you. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days. Peace.